welcome to Combat Thoughts. I'm Robbie.
I'm Lee.
And I'm Alex.
We're going to take a deeper look at the culture and philosophy behind martial arts. If you're good to jump into it, I mean, how are you feeling for Polaris?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know, it's something that is it's a really, really exciting event, and it's something where, you know, I think a lot of us felt that, especially after it got postponed the first time, that there was a risk that it wasn't going to happen. So it's kind of, I felt that the energy surrounding it has been a little bit up in the air for the last couple of months. But, you know, we're just over a week away now, and it's looking like it's going ahead. So it's starting to get exciting now.
Yeah, and you've got the full crowd as well, because didn't they release the second half of the tickets a week or two ago?
Yeah, they did. Yes, so the capacity will be able to serve a full capacity, and just comes down to how many people buy tickets. So, you know, you're down the south coast, like you just said. Anyone down the south, it's in Southampton, so definitely take advantage of it being there, because, you know, this is sort of you never know with these things. A lot of the time people get complacent and they think that there's going to be loads of these sort of opportunities in their area. But this is a really big event with some really high level athletes, some big names, and you don't know whether these guys are ever going to be down there again. So if you're in the area and you can get to it, then I definitely advise grabbing some tickets and come and see it live, because it's going to be crazy to be competing in front of an audience again after the last year and a half.
Fuck yeah. And it's one of those shows where it's about the show, it's about the action and, you know, putting on an event. It's not just about winning a competition. So I think that's part of what makes Polaris a bit special. Yeah,
you know, I really like the team grappling format, full stop. I like the idea of team grappling, and this is going to be the first one where we've had an audience. So, you know, I've watched one from afar. I've commentated on one of the team events, and now I'm competing, and now we finally have a crowd. So I think, you know, hopefully we can pack up this arena, and I think the atmosphere will be pretty incredible.
Fair. And on the team events subject, I mean, I know you're a fan from listening to, you know, a few podcasts and stuff. What are your thoughts on specifically Polaris' setup? And I mean, do you think team events are going to be something that continue long into the future, or do you think it's kind of a bit of a phase?
Yeah, you know, I think I was lucky enough to be part of the original grappling team event that kind of kicked this all off a few years ago, which is Quintet, and which is what gave, you know, the guys at Polaris the idea to run a team event as well. You know, I like that so many organizations copied Quintet pretty much, you know, word for word, exactly how they were doing it. And I really like the idea. I really like the fact that Polaris haven't done that and they've come up with their own format. You know, we've seen two versions of this now. And, you know, the first one, even though it was very high paced, you know, lacking a lot of submissions, and, you know, just how it was with the matchups that were happening. And then obviously the second event where you saw the same format, but in the gi and a lot more submissions, and you sort of saw how exciting that style can be. You know, for me personally, I wanted to compete on this since I first heard about it. And I was just, unfortunately, I was already booked on the date that first no-gi squads ran. Otherwise, I would have done that. But I really like the fact that it's very short rounds, very intense rounds, very fast pace. They've increased the length of the time of each half now from 40 minutes. Was 2 40-minute halves. It's now going to be 2 1-hour halves. So it's going to be 2 hours of grappling between the two teams. So I think it's really exciting, and I think it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, and you've not competed for some time, have you? Unless I've missed something. I don't think you've been.
Yeah, I competed briefly in summer of last year, in July last year. Otherwise, I haven't competed in a little while. Yeah.
Is, you know, like mat rust, as I guess you'd call it, any sort of concern, or not really aware?
No, not really. You know, I'm deep in my jiu-jitsu journey at the moment, and you know, I've had times when I've been pretty active, and I've had times where I've been off the mat for a while before. This doesn't concern me at all.
That's fair. And I know you personally, you stepped away from teaching in order to pursue more personal competitive kind of career, I guess. Is this going to be the start of that? Have you got a lot booked in and sort of looking to keep up the momentum?
It's was pretty bad timing for me, unfortunately, with COVID and everything, where
Yeah.
I stepped away from competition to focus on traveling and competing and teaching, around the world. And then the world shut down, some 4 or 5 months later. So big reevaluation of what of where I'm at and what I need to do or what I'm going to do from here. To be honest with you, I kind of always looked at either I was going to focus on competing or I was going to focus on teaching, and it was going to be very hard to do both. I'm getting to a point now, one of the things that I've realized over the last year and a half is, even though I have a great gym that I'm training out of, because it's not mine, because I don't have the setup that I would have if I had my own gym, for example, it has limited not my ability to teach, but limited also my ability to train. So now I am looking into the potential of opening my own gym, not just to teach, but also to facilitate me to train how I want to train, to continue to compete at the highest level.
Nice. How far along is that? Are you able to give any details at the moment, or is this just an idea?
It's this is something that is just an idea, really. This has been a plan for a while, obviously. Something that I've always wanted to do, and then it was all about a timing issue of when I was going to do it. And original plan was to go away for a few years and come back and do it. And now, almost a few years are going to pass by, but having done nothing because of all of the crap that's going on. I'm keeping an eye on what happens with this winter, and see whether we have another hard winter, especially a hard winter for combat sports and gyms in general.
Yeah.
But assuming that we get through the winter okay, and I feel confident that I can open a gym and not be put with any restrictions and obstacles from the pandemic affecting that, I will ideally look to open a gym next year.
Sick. Well, looking forward to that. Let us know if it happens. We'll definitely be able to visit.
Absolutely, you'll know. I'll be shouting all about it. It's something that I've wanted to do for a really long time. Whenever it will happen one day. Whenever it does happen, it will be great.
Nice. So to get back to Polaris and the team event, there's two bits I'm wondering about. Firstly, have you prepared any differently? I mean, I know for the small guys, it makes a bit more sense, roll against big guys. You've not been practicing just specifically crushing the smaller jiu-jitsu guys, or what's the prep been like?
You know what, the interesting thing about this format, one, because I'm not fighting someone who's super big, obviously I've had matches in the past where I was against very big guys, like when I competed against Satoshi Ishii, 115 or 110 kilo, Olympic judo gold medalist. And I was looking to grab the biggest guys that I could to get used to it. With this one, even though I probably won't be the biggest guy, I certainly will be towards the upper end of most of the matches that I have will obviously be against guys my size or smaller. And also at the same time, I don't have the variety of training partners to pick from that I might have had a couple of years ago. So I've kind of just been training with the best guys that I could. And one of the other big things is that very short rounds, 5-minute rounds, whereas in the past used to competing in Polaris 15-minute rounds, and even some events that have been longer, having to worry about getting longer rounds in and work on conditioning. Now 5-minute rounds is less time that I row in a normal round, so my training really hasn't been much different to what I would consider basic training, just upping the intensity a little bit.
That's fair. And is anyone bigger than you on the other team? I know Boogie's pretty big, but
yeah, I'd probably say Boogie's big. I'm about 90 kilos now, pretty much bang on. So some of those guys will come in at similar weight. Boogie's probably come in around about that, or a little bit heavier.
Anyone you see posing you a really big challenge? Anyone you're concerned about matching up with?
Those are two different questions.
Okay.
Anyone posing a challenge? All of them. Anyone I'm concerned with? None of them.
Cool.
The beauty of this event is that all of those guys are class. All of them. Every single one of them are world-class athletes. And I would love to throw down with each and every single one of them. All of them will be tough. That's the beauty for us on the UK and Irish team, is that any victory, any submission we get against that team will be a big deal because they are all top level guys.
Yeah, I mean, I was just talking to John Blank earlier, and it was interesting to point out that the American team is choosing from a much bigger pool.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that anyone in particular will be better or anyone in particular on the British team will be worse, but it's almost a little lopsided, almost in the way that you can build teams up. But on the other hand, there's no one in the British team I'd pick to be a sort of a weaker member of the squad, so perhaps not.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. You know, I don't think that we should be shying away from the fact that we're the underdogs going into this event. You know, the USA is significantly ahead of us when it comes to jiu-jitsu. You know, this isn't a controversial thing to be saying. This is a realistic thing to be saying. You know, you know, they've changed out half of their team, and they were able to get rid of world-class guys, including ADCC champions, and bringing guys that, you know, are still of that same caliber to replace them. So, you know, we are absolutely the underdogs. And yeah, we have a much smaller talent pool just in terms of population, you know, population full stop, population of people doing jiu-jitsu, and overall skill level of and experience of people, especially competition experience of people doing jiu-jitsu. We have a much smaller field to pick from, you know, but we have, you know, it was unfortunate that we lost Ash Williams.
Yes,
you know, he got injured. And that's a big blow to the team because Ash, it really is a class competitor. But, you know, we have the best, what I believe to be the best team that we could make out of UK and Irish grapplers.
Oh, poor Dominic Dillon.
He'd be next on my list.
Of course. Is there anyone in particular out of the team, or maybe out of the UK team, who do you think is the best at the moment that the UK can field within their own weight division? I mean, I hear Ash Williams' name bandied around a lot. Would you get on that boat, or?
Yeah, you know, Ash is good. Ash is what Ash is very good at is competing. You know, the guy is a very, especially in the last couple of years, he's had a lot of success, and you just can't really deny it. You know, he's been very, very successful. He's gone toe to toe with some great grapplers and come out on top, or had really great matches with them on multiple occasions. So, you know, it's hard to say. You know, Ash is certainly one of the best grapplers that the UK has ever produced, for sure.
No problem. And to change topics a little bit, obviously Olympics on at the moment. From time to time, the whole idea of jiu-jitsu in the Olympics gets thrown around quite a lot. What's your opinion on it? Are you in the sort of judo went downhill camp, or do you think it would just bring more eyes to the sport and be good overall?
Yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? I think that it's something that I cared more about 10 years ago, just because if jiu-jitsu was to make it to the Olympics, we'd be looking at 4 years' time at a minimum, and realistically, probably even longer than that. So from a very selfish perspective, it doesn't really matter to me anymore.
Yeah, fair enough.
Because I'm probably going to be past it by the time it comes around. Obviously, if it does come around in the next 4 years, I hopefully I wouldn't be past it. But if it's any longer than that, you know, 8 and 12 years and beyond, I'd love to still be able to represent the country, but realistically probably won't be the case. It's a good question. I think the way that I see the Olympics is definitely sort of a fantasy and a very poetic sort of concept in itself. You know, for me personally, as someone who is such a big fan of Greek history and Greek mythology and what that means, you know, the Olympics is obviously named after Mount Olympus and the Olympic and you know, the Olympic gods.
And you picked Kleos for your own competition, of course.
What's that? Yeah, exactly. Same sort of theme. You know, the idea was that the Olympics, the original Olympics, would be as close as you ever get to being with the gods. So, you know, there's definitely something poetic about it that I really love about it. But then you also have the realistic side, which is it's a very different event than it was then. It doesn't hold all of the spiritual stuff that it did back in the day. And, you know, there's a lot of issues with federations and stuff like that and the IOC. And you mentioned what's happened with judo. You know, I would hate to see. Let's be realistic. If jiu-jitsu gets into the Olympics, then that will be the main focus for everyone who competes in jiu-jitsu. And as soon as you have one single rule set or federation that is so highly looked at, all other rule sets will look towards that. So with IBJJF, in the gi, you have the IBJJF, and no gi, you kind of have ADCC. And if ADCC were to say ban heel hooks, that would completely change the game. You know, just like IBJJF introducing heel hooks. You know, if IBJJF, they'd never do it, and I don't think it would be right to do it, but if IBJJF introduced slams from guard and heel hooks in the gi, well, you've completely changed the sport, because how the sport is practiced in every single gym in the country, in the world, is going to be completely different. So giving that sort of power over to a outside federation and a committee in the IOC that are focused maybe not on the on what's best for the sport, but what's best for the sport for the IOC, I think it's a potentially dangerous situation, you know. So it's a tough one. Do I think that it will ever happen? Probably, you know, on a long enough time scale. I think that jiu-jitsu will continue to get bigger and bigger, and I think eventually they will manage to get it in the Olympics. There's some crazy sports that are in the Olympics. That shouldn't be in there, in my opinion. You know, do I think they should be in it? I don't know. It's a toss-up. There's only one way to find out if they ruin the sport. So I guess you could sit on the cautious side and say, don't let them get their hands on our sport and manipulate it. And the other side says, if Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu got into the Olympics, imagine the explosion of popularity that would come with it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I've always thought, though, is that the flexibility in the rule sets and the fact that people can just make up kind of whatever they want is probably one of the strengths of jiu-jitsu. I know it's annoying for people to learn new rules, but I think it's one of the coolest parts about the sport, and the fact that Eddie Bravo could just come up with his own thing to create a whole new show, or you can create a team event out of something that should not, in all other respects, be a team event.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I think that more people should do that. And it's something that I've been wanting to do for years. And when, you know, fingers crossed, when we get back to running competitions, I'm looking to run some really out there rule sets for some of the Kleos events. That's my plan.
Cool. Well, I will look forward to seeing what those rule sets are. Anything you want to shout out before we close this all off? I know you're doing a new DVD and stuff like that.
Yeah, I just filmed that yesterday. So that was a long day of throwing heavy bags around. So that will be hopefully coming out in the next couple of months, but just stay tuned. Check out my Instagram is the best place to follow me for anything, which is at Rosby_ape. I already have an instructional out. If people are looking for ways to make themselves stronger for grappling, then you can check out my grip training instructional, which is on my website, which is rosbyape.com. And the sandbag instructional will be out there in the next couple of months. You know, final shout out. Firstly, thank you very much for having me on. Secondly, just want to say, if you are listening to this, I'm sure you are planning to already, but make sure that you are either getting down to Southampton on the 7th to watch this live. And if you can't do that, make sure you're tuning in to watch it live on UFC Fight Pass.
Fantastic. Cheers, Dan. Close it off there.
Thank you very much. Cheers for having me, mate.